Holocaust Memories, Never Forget. Section 1, Origins of Antisemitism.
Part 9.
From Antiquity until Hitler controls Germany via the Enabling Act, March 1933. Although the ban on the Nazi Party was lifted, it remained moderately weak and on the margins of German political activity until the Great Depression struck in late 1929. During those years of apparent inactivity, Hitler never lost sight of his goal to eventually take control of Germany and destroy all Jews in Europe, and if possible, destroy those in the rest of the world as well. He also strengthened the party's reach throughout the country by organizing regional directors, or Gauleiters. Beneath the Gauleiters were lower levels of responsibility, each of which had to report upward and ultimately ending with Hitler himself. Among those rising quickly as leaders in the Nazi Party was the Gauleiter of the powerful Berlin-Brandenburg district, Joseph Goebbels, who eventually became Hitler's Minister of Propaganda. Another important leader in the party was Julius Streicher, the Gauleiter of the Franconia district and a man whose hatred of Jews knew no limits. Streicher created the rabidly anti-Semitic weekly newspaper Der Stürmer, which was allowed to publish falsehoods and acrimonious attacks on all things Jewish until near the end of the war. Ironically, Streicher's perversions were so unappealing to the Nazis that he was stripped of all power, but he was still allowed to continue publishing his newspaper with full protection from Hitler. Numerous friends of Hitler quickly advanced to the highest levels of the Nazi Party over the years, and during the war nearly all of them ended up being responsible for the deaths of countless innocent civilians. Among them are names most people will easily recognize. Hermann Göring, eventually commander of the Luftwaffe and second in command to Hitler. Joachim von Ribbentrop, who became Germany's foreign minister. Adolf Eichmann, one of the primary architects of the final solution. Heinrich Himmler, a cold-blooded murderer who was commander of the dreaded SS. Albert Speer, Hitler's Minister of Armaments and War Production. Werner von Braun, a brilliant scientist and designer of the V-1 and V-2 rockets and the first jet-powered fighter plane. Reinhard Heydrich, director of all security services and one of the most murderous leaders working for Hitler. And Hans Frank, the general governor of the occupied Polish territories and a brutal, heartless anti-Semite who was responsible for the deaths of millions of Jews. Following the worldwide depression of 1929, Germany's economy collapsed, creating a situation where the appeal of the Nazi Party grew stronger. The centrist democratic parties that were running the Weimar Republic held a solid majority of support prior to the general election of March 1932. But the Nazis won nearly 37% of the vote, surprising many conservative politicians. Hitler's primary opponent inside the government had always been the Communists, whose plan for the future of the struggling nation was much more frightening to most German citizens than anything the Nazi Party was proposing. To Hitler's great advantage, the 400,000 members of the SA under Ernst Röhm, also known as stormtroopers or brown shirts, had been terrorizing various cities and towns for years as they fought bitterly against the communist leaders and supporters. Following the second election in 1932, which took place in November, the Nazis and communists, although bitter enemies, now held more than 50% of the voting power in the Reichstag. Ironically, it was a slight decrease in public support for the Nazi Party after the November 1932 election that prompted Hitler to strike hard and fast in order to gain control of the government before the opportunity slipped away. Since neither the Nazis nor the Communists were willing to work together, a major political crisis was looming. After a number of emergency meetings to solve the problem, President Paul von Hindenburg named Adolf Hitler Reich Chancellor on 30 January 1933. Foolishly, President Hindenburg and his fellow centrists thought that they could control Hitler's power by limiting his new cabinet to only a small percentage of Nazis, but this would quickly prove to be impossible.